ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. So welcome to our Saturday morning session. Sorry for being slightly late because I was held up somewhere else. So slightly late, but now we can start our session. Today we are going to start chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita. We have already examined various verses of chapter 2, and this chapter 3 starts with a question from Arjun, and that question is based on what has been explained to him by Lord Krishna in chapter 2. So we will start with the question and then we will go into the answer. We will cover verses 1 to 8 today. Now, the verse says here, अर्जुन बोले, हे जनार्दन, यदि आपको कर्म की अपेक्षा ज्ञान श्रेष्ठ मान्य है तो फिर हे केशव मुझे इस भयंकर कर्म में क्यों लगा रहे हैं? आप मिले हुए से वचनों से मेरी बुद्धि को मोहित सी कर रहे हैं, इसलिए उस एक बात का निश्चित करके कहिए जिससे मैं कल्याण को प्राप्त होऊं. Now Arjuna is putting the ball in Krishna's court, telling him that what you have told me about Sankhya, that knowledge is the best thing, you should know what is the truth, you should realize that the inner self is eternal, it is not subject to alteration, it is not subject to any change. Then why are you putting me into this war? The war which will be cause of destruction. Why are you pushing me hard to do this? Now this question arises primarily because of 2-3 things. Firstly, Arjuna thinks that there is a clear-cut difference between the what you call Gyan Marg, the path of knowledge, and the path of action, Karma Marg. That is one thing he feels, that if you have to travel one particular path, you don't have to travel the other one. So that is one ignorance which Arjuna is displaying. Second ignorance which he is displaying is that if you have inner self, if you have the knowledge of inner self, if you already know the true self, the Atman, then whatever you are doing is like a Leela. It is not an action on your part. You are not bound by those actions. You will not have reaction of those actions in your life. So he believes, actually he does not believe that the action will cause reaction because he is ignorant about the real self. And this double ignorance, first ignorance that he does not know the real self, second ignorance that the action will bind him or bound him, that is causing confusion in the mind of Arjun. Now he is telling Krishna that you should tell me one particular path after deciding what is right. Now that is another factor which is actually coming out of ignorance of Arjun. If you recall the previous chapter, Krishna had told in one of the verses that if you put a nav, if you put a floating thing on the water on a river, obviously it will move and the wind will be able to blow it away. It will go in the direction of the wind. He was talking about the senses, and that the senses will be blown by the mind. That is what he was saying. Because senses are located on what you call a path which is moving all the time. That is the water which is all the time moving. which is not still. So if the sense organs are all the time moving, then they are moving because you have sense desires. You want to fulfill the desires of your sense organs. And that movement is giving movement to the senses. And then that movement takes like the wind, the knob is taken away, like the mind takes the senses away. Exactly the same thing applies here. The Arjuna's mind is unstable. And because of that instability, whatever Krishna is telling him, that becomes unstable. Arjuna's mind right now is like a flowing river. It's the thoughts are moving and moving and moving. And therefore, how can he attain stability in his mind when his mind is not stable? So these are the three reasons why Arjuna has asked this question. Firstly, he is distinguishing between karma and jnana totally. He feels that one path, if it's followed, the other path is irrelevant, and therefore, why are you putting me into the path of karma, which is leading to a disastrous war? That is one thing. Secondly, he is ignorant that if you have the knowledge of the inner self, then the karma becomes like a leela, and therefore those are not resulting into any action reaction in the real life. And thirdly, the Arjuna's mind is very unstable, and therefore whatever Krishna is telling him, actually moving inside his mind in instability, like a now moves on a moving river. So this is the reason why Arjuna has asked these questions. Now let us go one by one. The answers given by Krishna are one of the most extraordinary answers. If we follow these answers, we can actually understand the functioning of this world very well today. So we will go into these verses one by one. The verse number 3. श्री कृष्ण भगवान बोले, हे निष्पाप अर्जुन, इस श्लोक में दो प्रकार की निष्ठा मेरे द्वारा पहले कही गई है. उसमें से सांख्य योगियों की निष्ठा तो ज्ञान योग से और योगियों की यज्ञ से निमित्त ही भली भांति कर्तव्य पर आधारित है. तो ये Sri Krishna is telling him that he has told these two types of nishtha. The word nishtha means two types of paths in the past. The one path is the path of Sankhya, which is based on knowledge, that when you have knowledge of your true self, then everything else becomes irrelevant. And the second is the path of yoga, where the action is needed. Now here one thing is very important to understand. Sometimes we believe that the path of yoga or karma, in which we need to do something. Yes, that is true, we need to do certain things. And by doing those things, we will attain divinity, or we will realize the true self. So we need to do that. The Sankhya says that you already have that divinity inside. You just need to realize it, just need to feel it that it is there. And therefore you don't need to do more. Now there is a reconciliation between the two. Both are true in their true sense. The Sankhya says that you are divinity, and the self inside you is absolutely pure. You just need to feel it, realize it. That is possible through knowledge. And the practice of yoga, which is also based on Patanjali Yoga Sutra, he gives the Ashtanga path, 8 mark diye hain unhone, that you need to follow this path, and then you will be able to stabilize yourself and reach the state of samadhi in which you can feel your inner self. Now there is no contradiction in the two. It is like this. The some people in the world are introvert, some people are extrovert. Those people who are introvert, who are thinking type, who do meditation inside, who keep, churning their thought thinking process inside, those kind of people who are introvert, those people can do that churning inside and realize the truth that the inner self is eternal, it is imperishable, it is unchangeable. And then they can reach the path of divinity, they can become one with the Almighty. There are certain people who are extrovert. They cannot pass through that churning process inside their mind. They have the tendency to go out and work in the world. Now, that is because they have what you call an excess amount of Raj, gun. The passion of Raj is there. And that Raj is moving them towards action. So this activity of action is important for those people who have, excessive of Rajogun, and they can reach that path of internal realization through action. And that is why the Patanjali Yoga Sutra prescribes the 8 stages of yoga, and we follow those 8 stages and we reach the last, that is the samadhi, where everything is one with the Almighty, one with the Brahm. Then you become the योग हो जाता है आपका और ब्रह्म का, that is the युज and योग. So that state can be reached through 2 paths, the karma yoga and the jnana yoga. So here Arjuna is completely misled. He feels that both are contradictory. He can follow one and not the other. If Arjuna was really knowing the truth of his own self, then he would not have refused to fight the war, because then the war becomes like a leela for him. The war will be a part of his duty which he has to function. It is a leela. So the Arjuna is not yet reached deeply into the Sankhya, the state where he realized the divinity inside. That state he has not reached. And that is why he is raising this question that मेरे को दोनों में से एक चीज जो अच्छी है वो बताएं, उसी के अंदर मैं आगे बढ़ूं. आप मेरी बुद्धि को विचलित सी कर रहे हैं मिले मिले शब्दों को कह के. That is what he has said in his question in the beginning of the 3rd chapter. So this is what I wanted to mention in the beginning, that the Gyan Marg and the Karma Marg, they are not opposite of each other. Actually, they reach the same destination, but the people who are inward looking, they can reach through Gyan Marg more easily. The people who are extrovert, they're looking outside more and more oriented towards action, they will be better off following the karma path of karma. Now, let me give you another example to explain this. For example, somebody is sick. He goes to a doctor. Now, doctor examines him fully. He prescribes him tests. Everything is done. And then after the papers come, doctor finds there's nothing wrong in his system. Everything is working fine. So he will tell him that, listen, you are absolutely fine. You don't need any medication. You just start feeling fine and you'll be okay. Now, one person who is inward looking, when he listens to him, he will be satisfied. He will be happy that, okay, there's nothing wrong with me, and I start feeling safe, and I feel, happy, and I feel absolutely healthy. But if you tell the same thing to another person who is expecting some medication from the doctor, he will be totally disappointed. He will say, oh, I came to the doctor, I paid so much, and I got all these tests done, and now doctor is telling me there's nothing wrong with me. So he will be very disappointed. So that person is more oriented in the extrovert world, and he is disappointed because doctor has not given him anything. Now, for such a person, if the doctor prescribes some medication, which may be simply, the sugar tablets, nothing else but a tablet to tell him that take this one tablet per day and you will be fine, I think that would work better for that kind of person. So this is what the difference between Gyan Marg and Karma Marg is. That Karma Marg could be understood by a person who has reached a particular state in his inner thinking, and he has realized that he is one with the divinity. And a person who is extrovert and oriented towards outside world, he needs some solace from the outside world to feel comfort inside, like the prescription of a doctor, though it may not be a medicine at all, but that prescription gives him solace and he feels comfortable, and later on he start feeling good. So this is the difference between the two, Karma Marg and Jnana Marg. Now let us, in this, Krishna says he has told this thing in the past. Arjun did not raise this question when it was told, but he will raise this question later on in another chapter where he says that आपका जन्म तो अभी हुआ है, सूर्य का जन्म बहुत पुराना है, तो आपने सूर्य को कैसे कहा था, मैं कैसे जानूं? But he is not raising this right away here. So Krishna says कि मैंने ये दो बात आप लोगों को पहले बताए हैं, ज्ञान मार्ग और कर्म मार्ग, और उन दोनों को पहले मैंने समझाया है, इन दोनों की निष्ठा मैंने बताई है. Now he is coming to the karma path in a very specific way. He says Prajapati Brahmane, sorry, this is, yeah. He says मनुष्य न तो कर्मों का आरंभ किए बिना निष्कर्मता को प्राप्त होता है, और नए कर्मों के केवल त्याग मात्र से यानी सांख्य निष्ठा को प्राप्त हो जाता है. ये दिस इज ए रिवोल्यूशनरी स्टेटमेंट कि मनुष्य अगर कार्य नहीं करता है तो निष्कर्मता को प्राप्त नहीं होता है. आप बिस्तर में बैठे हुए हैं आलसी बन के, इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि आप निष्कर्म हैं, आप एक्चुअली आलसी हैं. अगर कोई आदमी कुछ भी मूवमेंट नहीं करता, कुछ भी कार्य नहीं करता, इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि वो निष्क्रिय है. निष्क्रिय और आलस्य में बहुत फर्क है. जो भी व्यक्ति किसी काम को नहीं करता है, इसका मतलब वो न करना भी उसका निष्क्रियता नहीं है, वो भी एक कर्म है. काम को न करना भी एक कर्म है. जैसे आपके पास किसी का फोन आता है, आप उस फोन को रिसीव करते हैं तो वो भी एक कर्म है. आप उस फोन को नहीं लेते हैं तो भी एक कर्म है. आपने उस फोन को नहीं लेने से निष्क्रियता दिखाने की कोशिश की, लेकिन वो निष्क्रियता नहीं है. This is a revolutionary statement. Most people believe that if I keep quiet, I am niskriya. It is not so. It doesn't work that way. He will explain what is niskriya later on, but right now he is saying that abstaining from the action is not niskriyata. Similarly, he says that कर्मों को त्याग कर देना, that you purposefully decide to leave your action, उससे भी आपको सांख्य की निष्ठा प्राप्त नहीं होती है. So the action is, he means to say here that action is inevitable in human life. Whether you decide not to do, that is purposefully you decide not to do. Secondly, you don't do it because of your own nature or because of your own, alasya. Even then you are not niskriya. So niskriyata and akarmanyata, they are two different things. Akarmanyata is not niskriyata. Akarmanyata can be because of your laziness. You could be totally lazy, and that is why you can have a tendency of akarmanyata. And then you can purposefully decide not to do any activity that will also not lead you to the, 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 the real knowledge of yourself. So this is also, like for example, some people decide to abandon this world purposefully and go and retire in Himalaya. It does not mean that they have attained real knowledge, that they have attained the knowledge of the self. It is not correct. Uh, it may or may not happen. So here he is making this revolutionary statement. There are a lot of people today in India who wear गेरुए वस्त्र अपना पहन लिया and then go and start living in ashrams and Himalayas or somewhere. They took a Viksha Patra and they feel that they have abandoned the world and they are living, completely away from the sansar. That is not true. That is, they are deluding themselves and they are deceiving others. That is not the way the Gita describes the meaning of, both what you call yuj with the Almighty through the Sankhya route and through the Karma route. That is not the way. He will explain how it will come in the subsequent verses. Now, verse number 5. निसंदेह कोई भी मनुष्य किसी भी काल में क्षण मात्र भी बिना कर्म किए नहीं रह सकता. ये स्टेटमेंट है. क्षण मात्र भी बिना कर्म किए नहीं रह सकता, क्योंकि सारा मनुष्य समुदाय प्रकृति जनित गुणों द्वारा परवश होके कर्म करता है, कर्म करने के लिए बाध्य है. Now this is a very what you call strong fact of life. What is life? If we look at our life, what is life? Life is the sum total of the action we do in our life from birth to death. That is life, sum total of the actions. Action does not mean that if you are sitting idle, that is also action. If you are sleeping all the time, that is also action. Because the human being cannot remain without action at all, any time in life. Agar I am breathing in and out, that is also action. Though it is happening automatically, but it is an action. If I am eating my food, that is also an action. If I am, evacuating, that is also an action. If I am going to sleep, that is also an action. So whatever we are doing, if we are moving about in your own house, if you are taking a stroll outside, everything is action. So that is what Krishna has explained here, that without action, life is not possible. Even shan matra, word use किया है. कश्चित क्षणम पे, कोई भी क्षण ऐसा नहीं होता जिसमें आप बिना कार्य किए रह सकते हो. So it is absolutely clear. The Sanskrit verse is also absolutely clear. कश्चित क्षणमपि, कोई भी क्षण ऐसा नहीं है जिसमें आप बिना काम किए रह सकते हो. Then why do you work? That's another very important fact of life, the very truth of nature, that you are working. Not because you are working yourself, but because you are forced to work. Because of the three passions, the Raj, Sat and Tam. These three passions propel you to do the work. You are being propelled by them. अगर आप आलसी हैं तो आलसी आप तमोगुण की वजह से. अगर आप बैलेंस्ड हैं तो आप सतोगुण की वजह से. अगर आप बहुत काम कर रहे हैं बार बार पैशन की तरह से, तो वो आप रजोगुण की वजह से. जैसे राजनीतिक लोग हैं, बहुत एक्टिविटी करते हैं, They are all the time engaged in activities. Sometimes I wonder how do they get this energy? It is coming because of Rajogun. They have a lot of Rajogun inside them. There are a lot of people who are tamsi in nature, those who are just idle, sitting at home, not liking any work. They are doing that because of tamas. That is, in higher quantity in those kind of people. So they are not able to, do work because that is their tendency not to work. And those who do activities in a balanced way, they settle the balance. Those kind of people are sato. They have the sato gun inside them in higher quantity. So Krishna is saying that what you and me and every one of us is doing is not because of my will. We don't have free will here. This is a very big question. A lot of Western people talk about free will. Do we have free will? The question is that we do not have free will. We have been given this software inside our body. This software has three qualities, Sat, Raj and Tam. Those qualities keep pushing our mind and our senses in that particular direction, and that is why we are propelled to do certain activities. I can tell you some of my personal experiences. There are some people who work very hard and they are already very rich. They have, I don't know, 100 crore worth of properties all around. So I asked them, why are you working still? He says, no, this is my nature. I cannot live without work. So even at the 70 or 75 years of age, they keep working very hard. It is not that money is propelling them. It is the inner self, inundated in that Triguni Maya. In that he is being propelled by that Triguni Maya. The Triguni Maya is propelling him to do that. You will realize yourself. You tell, I'm sure you must have told many things in your life to your subordinates, to your colleagues, to your friends, to your family members. Please don't do this or please do this. They won't listen to you. They will ultimately do what they want to do because they are propelled by these three, gunas which are dominating in their own self. It is like a software inside. That software keeps propelling you. When you navigate a particular software, you navigate according to the structure of that software. The software takes you where it wants to take you. That's how it works. It will tell you, keep you giving you directions, do this, do that, and you are forced to do that. So this is how our inner system works. So these two verses, that akarmanyata is not niskarmata, first thing. And even if you decide not to do certain activities with purpose, that is also not going to lead you to self-realization. That is one, very big truth of life, which is in verse number 4. In verse number 5, he says that you cannot remain without doing work even for a second in your life. You have to work because life is work. And you are not working at your free will. You are being propelled by these, three entities of the nature, Rajogun, Satogun, and Tamogun. They are propelling you to do the activities. So this is what Krishna has told him, that don't tell me that I am pushing you into the war. It is your own gunas which are telling you, you are the one who brought me through this Kurukshetra war. I did not come on my own. You were the one who brought me here. So this is what he wanted to tell him, but he did not tell him in so many words. He simply told him that you are being propelled by the qualities of three gunas, and that is why you have to work. And he is telling him the truth first, and then he will tell you the subsequent message. So now let's go to the verse number 6. This is another revolutionary verse. जो मूढ़ बुद्धि मनुष्य समस्त इंद्रियों को हठपूर्वक ऊपर से रोककर मन से, इंद्रियों से उन विषयों का चिंतन करता रहता है, वह मिथ्याचारी या दंभी कहा जाता है. So if you forcefully remove your senses from the activities and then keep thinking about those activities in your mind, he says that he is not a truthful person. He is a liar. That is the word he's saying. Mithyachar. He is trying to resort to falsehood. There is no truth in his activity. So those people who try to show you that they have abandoned all the worldly activities and live in forest or live in an ashram or live in a thing, not necessarily are the truthful people. I'm not saying all of them are mithyachari. No, I'm not saying that. Some of them could be, some of them may not be. Those people who do not think about those activities in their mind, they are truthful people. Those people who are thinking about those things in the mind and they are forcefully not doing those activities, they are untruthful. I gave you that example last time and I'll repeat it now again, that a pujari, a priest and a prostitute, they were living opposite each other. Their houses were opposite each other. The prostitute all the time thought that she was the sinner. She was doing all the wrong activities while the priest is praying all the time. And she was looking at the prayer of the priest and, feeling guilty all the time inside. On the other hand, the priest was, even while praying, thinking of the prostitute all the time, thinking that, she's enjoying her life and she's getting a lot of money, all kinds of rich people are coming to her, how much money she's earning in this process, having a luxurious life. So the priest was thinking that way. Now the two people are acting differently but thinking differently. When the two died, the prostitute reached the heaven and the priest reached the hell, because the priest was all the time thinking about the prostitute and the prostitute was all the time thinking about the prayer of the priest. So this is what happens when we forcefully stop our behavior in a particular direction and then think about all those desires inside our mind, then that is called mithyachar. That is called, that is actually a prostitution in a way. Because you have become prostitute, you are doing something and thinking something else. That is an inner prostitution of the mind. But if a person who has actually abandoned all the activities, but he has also abandoned those activities from his mind, from his mental framework, then he is the truthful person who has reached the desired goal of one with the Almighty. He has become united with the Almighty. So this is how the explanation of this verse is, that we don't have to actually forcefully stop our natural behavior and then think about it in the mind. That is not a correct approach. If we have certain desires, it is better to fulfill them and be natural rather than trying to behave in an artificial manner. That is what comes in verse number 7 now, which is very, verse number 4, 5, 6 and 7, they give a very deep meaning to the life. The verse number 7 says, किंतु हे अर्जुन, जो पुरुष मन से इंद्रियों को वश में करके अनासक्त हुआ, समस्त इंद्रियों द्वारा कर्म योग का आचरण करता है, वह श्रेष्ठ है. So you are doing all the activities, but anasaktva, without attachment, without getting, absolutely inundated into those activities. If you are not inundated, if you are not, what you call asakt into them, there's another word in Sanskrit called limpente. जैसे if you put hand in water, the water will touch, will ultimately stick to your hand. You limpente, वो water में, sorry, hand में हाथ लगी, पानी लगी जाता है. तो that is, आप उसमें बिना लिम्पनते अगर आप अपना कर्म कर रहे हैं, कर्म में अनासक्त का मतलब उसमें आप लिप्त नहीं है, उसमें लिम्पनते नहीं है, वो आपके ऊपर असर नहीं डाल रहा है, वो आपकी जो इनर मूवमेंट है उसको इम्पैक्ट नहीं कर रहा है, देन यू वट एवर यू आर डूइंग that is not going to impact you. Then you are basically doing a task without having consequences of it. You will not have to take care of the consequences because this kind of action will not generate consequences. You will be a karma yogi in that situation. You will become a karma yogi, that you are doing all the activities without getting attached to any one of them, then you are karma yogi. So this is the final mantra which he explains in a beautiful way, that this is how we should continue to move forward. And then we will take the verse number 8, which is the last verse for today. Tu shastra vihit कर्तव्य कर्म कर, जो शास्त्र में कहा गया है वो कर्तव्य कर, क्योंकि कर्म न करने से की अपेक्षा कर्म करना ज्यादा श्रेष्ठ है. कर्म नहीं करना तो आलस्य का सबूत है. इट इज बेसिकली लेजीनेस. इट इज ऑल्सो ए साइन ऑफ तमोगुण if you are not doing the work. So you should do the work which has been determined for you by the Shastras. And what was Arjun? Arjun was Kshatriya. And for Kshatriya, धर्म युक्त युद्ध से बढ़कर कोई कर्म क्षत्रिय के लिए नहीं है. And that is what Krishna wants to tell him, that as a Kshatriya, you should do the duty which is decided for you by the Shastras. And then, you will not be impacted if you are not attached to that karma. So शास्त्र विहित कर्तव्य कर्म कर, क्योंकि कर्म न करने से करने की अपेक्षा कर्म करना श्रेष्ठ है, तथा कर्म न करने से तेरा शरीर निर्वाह भी सिद्ध नहीं होगा. नियतम कुरु कर्म त्वम कर्म जायजो हाय मकर्ण शरीरायात्रापि चते न प्रसिद्ध कर्मण. So what he is saying, that you have to do your duty which have been determined by the Shastras. Shastras meaning that the wise people who have pronounced, that is Shastra, whatever has been pronounced by the wise, that is Shastra. It could be Vedas, it could be the words of the wisdom by the wise. All that is Shastra. So whatever they have told you as your duty, you should continue to do that. If you do not do that, then it would also be difficult for you to live a meaningful life. That is what he says. You will not be able to live a meaningful life if you are not able to do those duties yourself. So this is where we will stop today. Basically, to repeat precisely, he says that अकर्मण्यता और निष्कर्मता अलग अलग चीजें हैं दोनों. अकर्मण्यता तमोगुण से आती है, निष्कर्मता जो आती है वो नॉन अटैचमेंट से आती है. और आदमी बिना काम किए जीवन में एक क्षण भी नहीं रहता. उसको अपने प्रकृति के अधीन होके काम करना पड़ता है। द प्रकृति जो है 3 गुणों द्वारा चलती है, उन तीनों गुणों से युक्त होकर आप प्रकृति के अधीन होके काम करने के लिए बाध्य होते हैं। तो यू कैन नॉट स्टॉप acting, you have to act. And those people who forcefully stop acting and then meditate or think about those actions in their mind, they are basically telling the truth. They are basically telling the lies. And they are the people whom he describes as mithyachari, the people with, dichotomy in their behavior, the people who are telling lies, the people who are not having a correct behavior. So this is what he says, and therefore finally he advises him that do your duties as described in the Shastras, but do not get attached to that, because without your performance of your duty, your life will also be without any meaning. And that is where he explains the crux of Karma Yoga in these 6 verses. He explains the crux of the Karma Yoga in these 6 verses, and then he will continue on that later on. So I'll stop here. If you have any questions on this, I'll be happy to answer. We also have one question from Tarun from last time. I'll try to answer that today.